Hello, I'm Dale Harris of Voters for Jobs. Um, this video is about reversing the brainwashing of voters who vote to kill themselves by voting for candidates who have said they'll support policies that will in fact kill voters. Um, and this is directed at the progressive candidates who people that are thoughtful should vote for. But the problem is people are brainwashed, and people that are brainwashed vote against their own self-interest and vote against their own survival. um, to guarantee a landslide victory, every true populist candidate who wants to win election needs to be educated to understand a few basic things. The first is voter psychology, including how voters are brainwashed into being suicidal mind slaves, and how to reverse wash voters uh, to be free thinkers who fight to save their own lives and economic interest. Second, how the economy works in basic economics, in particular what actually creates jobs and helps American people, and how to educate and motivate voters to fight for their own lives and their own economic well-being. So you can educate the voters so that you understand it, so you can educate the voters so they understand what actually creates jobs, namely not giving billions of dollars to billionaires, but actually taxing billionaires to finance creating spending that creates jobs. Very simple, but unfortunately a lot of voters are brainwashed, don't understand that. So you need a way to educate them, educate voters on basic economics. Third, a deeper understanding of trans-religion morality, namely the core true nature of good and evil, that transcends that contains religious dogma that contains the false doctrines of men. Unfortunately, religious dogma is basically based upon false doctrines of men's and lead people away from the truth. Religion has like an inner core of truth and outer crust of dogma created by human. You need to wipe that away and keep the inner core truth that crosses, that's in many religions. Um, when voters stop believing the dogma that men order them to believe and fully understand the true nature of good and evil, then they will vote based upon true moral values. And, true moral values like compassion for people, and people vote based upon true moral values, which, and other certain core moral truths that are in many different religions, rather than based upon false doctrines of men, then they'll vote for progressive candidates who show compassion for individuals and want to help people. So you get understand what the core moral values are, and get people, educate Christians, brainwash Christians to understand that they should be voting on based upon the core moral values that Jesus taught, rather than the false doctrines of men that the followers, the servants of money, pastors teach, the false doctrines of men that pastors teach. So follow Jesus, not your pastor. Okay. The fourth thing is cognitive psychology, learning theory, and rational thinking. By teaching voters how to learn and understand at the deepest level and use the scientific method to learn the greater truth, voters are less likely to be fooled by lies and more likely to vote in their real self-interest. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of voters that are brainwashed, believe based upon what they're ordered to believe by their brainwashed masters, and what they think is popular because they want to be popularly accepted, so they believe what's popular, rather than using a scientific method and thinking for themselves, being free to think for themselves, figure out what actual truth is and believe based upon the truth. And so because they don't believe what's true, they believe falsehoods, they end up voting based upon their false beliefs, which ends up them voting for things that kill them. So voters end up killing themselves because they're not free to think for themselves and figure out what the truth is. So if you learn about rational thinking and how to teach voters to do rational thinking and vote based upon rational thinking and evidence and learning what the actual truth is rather than what your brainwash masters tell you to believe, then voters are more likely to vote in their own self-interest and therefore vote for the progressives that are actually going to help them. So, but you need to teach the voters those things. So voter psychology to reach voters, know and teach voters how to understand basic economic principles, uh, understand and teach voters true moral values, the core moral values that people should live by, and that they should reject the doctrines of men and live by the core moral values, and then also teach voters not to believe based upon their brainwash masters ordering them to believe something, but believe something based upon evidence and give them the ability to think for themselves, use rational thinking, and learn the truth. But so those are some of the ways to reach voters and then educate them so they'll vote in their self-interest, which means voting progressive. Okay. I can guarantee true populist candidates a landslide victory if this advice is followed and the effective message reaches the voters. So, I mean, you still have to reach, the majority of the voters and educate people and change their minds, but the message has to reach the voters. But if you use voter psychology to connect with people, and you have the right message to re-educate the people so they don't believe false beliefs anymore, and this message reaches the voters, then given that the progressive message is actually helping the people, and once they understand who's actually helping them, hurting them, that means landslide victory. But you need voter psychology and the right message in order to, educate the voters and reach the voter. Anyway, the reason why I say that is okay, and I'm an expert on the keys to winning the hearts and minds of voters. I'm the inventor of a system of spiritual psychology which contains a psychological model that fully explains human social behavior. I have a degree in economics, and I explain how to merge the virtues of capitalism and socialism to both end individual human suffering and promote greater national prosperity. I have studied Christianity, Zen Buddhism, and other religious philosophies, and can explain the deepest moral truths at the core of many religions, the core central truth, rather than the outer crust of false doctrines of men. And this core truth that transcends religion, that's at the core of many religions, that's the thing that everybody should be living on, based upon. It's related to basic teachings of Jesus that everybody should live by, the two greatest commandments: love God, love others as yourself, and also his teaching that you go to heaven. Compassion for, if you show compassion for the needy, then you go to heaven. If you don't, then you go to hell. That's in Matthew 25:31 through 46. Okay. I understand artificial intelligence and the similar human process of cognitive psychology. Being a professional computer scientist made me an expert at logical thinking and problem solution analysis. So I understand how logical thinking works and how people, rational thinking leads to learning the truth rather than believing based upon popular belief, or based upon emotions, or based upon fear that you'll be punished if you don't believe what you're ordered to believe, and that stuff. I know how to teach people to believe based upon evidence rather than belief based upon intimidation and psychological problems that some voters have. Okay. I will focus here on voter psychology keys to a landslide victory. And what I'm saying here is if all the progressives running for office and their staff learn these four basic things of, voter psychology, and then knowing how to educate the public on basic economic theory, basic morality that everybody should be living by, and also how to think, how to use rational thinking to figure out what's true and false, rather than basing your belief based upon intimidation or emotions or whatever irrational method. If you do that, and you know how to deliver the message and educate the voters, then you can not only just win elections, you can have a landslide victory. That's basically what I'm saying. Okay, uh, I'll focus here on voter psychology keys to a landslide victory. Okay, America is no longer a democracy where Congress serves the will and interest of the American people. America is an economic dictatorship where Congress obeys the orders of the radical billionaire economic dictators of America. The major reason for that is the dictators of America use corporate news and doctrines of men religion to brainwash voters to be mind slaves who believe what they are ordered to believe and vote the way they are ordered to vote. I advise, yeah, uh, and I'll explain how that works, how people become mind slaves of their slave masters, and how to free them to think for themselves, so they don't vote to kill themselves, but vote to save themselves. Okay, I advised, and okay, another thing is, a lot of people using the word oligarchy. Uh, I suppose it's okay, but I'm not really in favor so much about people using the word oligarchy. Um, and the reason why is the word a lot of people don't understand what oligarchy means. I mean, you can educate them, but it's not like one of the core words. It's, it's like over the heads of some people, unfortunately. And it's also not a hot button word that automatically triggers strong negative emotional reactions. Uh, one of the keys to communication is not just deliver a message, but deliver a message that's received by the listener. And to get the message received by the listener, you have to use words that resonate with the listener. That means everybody understands what dictatorship means. Everybody understands dictatorship is bad. And so if you use the word dictatorship, economic dictatorship, or the phrase economic dictatorship rather than oligarchy, you will more effectively communicate to, be understood by, and be motivated by listeners, where the word oligarchy is over their head, but economic dictatorship, that creates an emotion. I mean, you could run experiments, like hook people up to electrodes, say the word oligarchy, say the word dictatorship, and anyway, basically what I'm saying, there's some psychology in what words you use, and so it's better to use a hot button word rather than one that's sophisticated but maybe not a hot button word. Okay, everyone knows, what dictatorship means, and it hurts it. Calling America an economic dictatorship of radical billionaires who are enslaving, impoverishing, and killing the American people is more to the point and can make it easier to recruit the masses to join the revolution to overthrow the dictators of America. But be ready to defend that claim and prove that people are being enslaved, impoverished, and killed by tax cuts on billionaires that deny college education, good paying jobs, and health care to poor and middle class Americans. I mean, the proof is easy enough. The fact that tax cuts on billionaires and them not wanting to um, have Medicare for all, lack of funding, lack of taxing to provide for Medicare for all, means that a lot of people don't have medical coverage, and as a result, when people don't have medical coverage, adequate food, good jobs, etc., people die. So that means that people are being killed by the policy of the government to cut taxes on billionaires, and the government is actually owned by the radical billionaires who order Republicans in Congress to cut their taxes. That was a Trump tax bill. The billionaires ordered them to cut their taxes. So doing what the American people want, they did what they were ordered to do by their masters, the radical billionaire economic dictators of America. America's an economic dictatorship of radical billionaires, and the Republicans in Congress are their servants, and that's why we don't have a democracy anymore. But so it's pretty easy to prove that we are an economic dictatorship of radical billionaires, and that it is killing Americans. Okay, a part of the key to a landslide victory is the following. Uh, First, rally all free-thinking voters to join, that are smart enough to know, that the people that are going to help them are the people that say we are for Medicare for all, free college, minimum wage, and all those various issues that Bernie points out. So all the people that are free to think for themselves and use rational thinking to vote based on their own self-interest, rally all those people to join the revolution to restore democracy in America, save the lives, freedom, wealth of the American people, and also not only rally them to join the revolution, and but also if you have a program where you can educate the other people that aren't free thinkers and educate them and turn them into free thinkers, so a light bulb goes on in their head and they say, you know what, these Republican servants of the radical billionaires are killing me, and I shouldn't vote for them because I don't want to vote to kill myself. When that light bulb goes on inside their head, then they'll say, you know what, I should, join the revolution for democracy. Kick every Republican out of office that voted for the Trump tax bill, and elect progressives. So so you educate the brainwashed people to use voter psychology and certain methods to unbrainwash them. Light bulb goes on. You can get them to join the revolution. So the free thinkers can educate and recruit the non-free thinkers. Okay, yeah, the second part is explain to mind slave voters how they're being brainwashed to transform them into being free thinkers who will also join the revolution for democracy. The thing about brainwashing is if you educate people and explain to them how they are being brainwashed, what methods are being brainwashed, used on them to brainwash them, and they think and remember, oh yeah, this happened to me, this was sad, and this is what I was thinking when this was sad, and that's what's going on inside their mind. Light bulb goes in off in their head. Oh yeah, I'm being brainwashed. I'm being brainwashed to vote to kill myself. Then they can wake up and they can become free thinkers. But educating them on how they're being brainwashed, and then also educate them on the principles, how the economy works, how and what basic morality is, and how to do rational thinking, and then they can become free thinkers. And when they're free thinkers, then they'll vote in their own self-interest, and then join the revolution. And as a result, progressives won't just have victories, progressives will have landslide victories. Progressives won't just take over Congress, but we could have almost zero Republicans in Congress in America. I mean, our goal should not just be victory, but absolute victory. That's our goal, because we want to change things. We want to save America, and we need absolute, not just victory, but absolute victory. Okay, I'll explain how the economic dictators of America turn many voters into mind slaves, and how to free those voters so they no longer vote to kill themselves when they are ordered to do so by their mind slave masters. However, voters brainwashed into voting for policies that will kill them, and for candidates who support policies that kill them. An example is brainwashing voters into believing that regulations are bad. So voters will vote for candidates who support the removal of regulations to protect clean air and clean water. Um, well, the process of doing this is partly it's like they watch a certain news channel, and they get over time they believe, you know, it's basically mental conditioning, kind of like the Pavlov dog. You ring a bell, and when you bring food, and then it salivates when it hears the bell ringing. The process of them watching this certain news channel that we all know what it is. Um, you know, the people watching that and listening to that constantly. There's slur on liberal, and you know, it's kind of like part of their mental process is they get mentally trained to believe that these guys are the ones that tell them what they believe, and if they believe what their masters on this certain news channel tell them to believe, then they'll be part of the, you know, people who are okay, you know, socially accepted, and etc. You know, so they have this emotional psychological problem of being afraid to not believe what they're ordered to believe by these people on this certain news channel. Okay, but there's a lot involved in it. But basically, these um, methods of brainwashing psychology to get them to, you know, think they're masters and tell them the truth, and then they end up believing. So they subtle statements like, "Oh, we need to get rid of regulations," and they constantly say, "Oh yeah, number one thing we got to get rid of regulations. Regulations kills jobs," which is bull. But they say it 1,000 times, and then people start believing it. So they're brainwashed into believing regulations are bad. And as a result of voters believing regulations are bad, and then they go along and vote for Republicans who will get rid of clean air and clean water regulations. As a result, voters are poisoned by they're killed by poisoned air and polluted water, and voters are voting for candidates who are killing them by taking away the regulations that are protecting their lives. By believing the lie that regulations are bad, you know, because they're brainwashed, and you know, by being told 1,000 times that regulations are bad, they vote for candidates who say they're going to get rid of regulations. Those candidates do exactly that. They get rid, and then they get rid of clean air and clean water regulations, and as a result, voters breathe dirty air, breathe toxic water, and they die. And voters voted to kill themselves by voting for candidates who promised they'd get rid of the regulations that protect their lives. You know, so that's what happens. Okay, how do they brainwash voters to vote to kill themselves? Okay, my psychological model of human social behavior explains how brainwashing works. The brainwashing method used includes using the strong psychological triggers of survival, morality, and social belonging. My psychological model explains, you know, how behavior works, and it's a complex process. There's many parts to it, but you know, one of the keys is to remember that there's certain key core triggers that control behavior. More than that is survival, morality, and social belonging. If you think something threatens your survival, then you react to that immediately. You know, it's like, you know, that's like an alarm bell. People, okay, I'll explain here. The fear of death, hell, and other trauma creates a survival response that brainwashers can use. The need to believe you are good and have social belonging are also core psychological needs. You know, believe that you're good, believe that you belong to a group. Those are core psychological needs, and the fear of loss of those. Fear of loss of those two things can be almost as traumatic as the fear of death. Okay, so those are triggers that brainwashers use to control people, and that's how they brainwash people into believing lies like regulations kills jobs, when truth is regulation saves the lives and save the lives of people. It protects the wealth of consumers. You know, like, you need regulations on banks so they don't charge 25% interest on credit cards, so you don't go bankrupt because you owe money. Anyway, Brainwashers use the drive for social belonging and approval to make voters mind slaves who believe the false beliefs that they are ordered to believe. And they order, by so many words implying this is true, and their masters order them, say, oh, you got to believe. Oh, okay. Anyway, here's an example. Example is how they get voters to believe that liberalism, which cares about and helps them, that liberalism, which actually cares about and helps the American people, is bad. They use words and verbal intonations to communicate the following messages. One, liberals are bad because they take money away from you and give it to the poor. People make fun of and laugh at liberals. If you do not hate liberals and prove that you're, one of the group, one of the in-group who hates liberals, then you will become a social outcast and you will not have social belonging. The fear of being laughed at, made fun of, and being a social outcast causes some to obey the brainwashers and accept the false belief that liberalism is bad. The false perception that liberalism, namely compassion for people and compassion for the needy and the middle class American people, is a bad thing, which is ridiculous. But believing that false belief, together with the fear of loss of social belonging, causes suicidal voters to vote against liberal candidates who would work to that will work real hard to save the lives and wealth of the American people. So they vote against themselves. They vote for their own champions, the liberals, because they're brainwashed to believe liberals are bad, and that politicians who actually care about them and want to help them, that they're bad because they have the label liberal on them. Okay, but that's how they do it. They use these triggers of intimidation, of fear of being made fun of, fear of that you lose social belonging, you be an outcast if you allow yourself to be called liberal, or you don't prove that you're one of the group and you hate liberals and make fun of liberals. Okay. The key to reversing their brainwashing is to use the same core psychological needs of survival, belief that you are good and worthy to live, and social belonging. For example, tell voters that their life, freedom, and economic well-being depends on them being free to think for themselves, learn what the truth is, and then vote based upon the true interest of them and America as a nation. For example, to reverse the liberal as bad brainwashing, tell voters the following. Okay, there's several things, and some of this is a little bit involved. The basic thing is reversing the thing. Prove that liberals are good. Prove that being a liberal doesn't make you made fun of, but lots of people respect liberals and there's reason for it. And prove that rather than obeying the dogma, obeying your mind slave masters and proving that you're one of the group who hates liberals, if you prove that you support those who have compassion on the people, that you won't be a social outcast, but you'll actually be part of a larger group of people, progressives, and you'll be a social insider because progressives are the real inside. But that's the basic idea, but I'm going to explain other things in more detail because sometimes you have to educate people in more detail to make people understand at a deeper level. Okay, so here's the explanation. Liberalism is good because it teach the voters. One, teach them that liberalism is good because it taxes the radical billionaire economic dictators of America to give money and jobs to you, save your life with Medicare for all, give your children an economic future with free college, save the lives of seniors citizens by protecting Social Security and Medicare, save the lives of babies with health care, healthy food, and clean water for all babies in America, give Americans their good-paying factory jobs back, give Americans good paying construction jobs, and much more to help you and your family and help America. Okay. Second, free thinking people reject others on no, free thinking people respect others who are liberals and have love and compassion for the American people. Free thinking people also respect those who are a mixture of liberal, moderate, and conservative and seek to combine the virtues of all three. There's both virtue and vice to the three philosophies of liberal, moderate, and conservative, and people that thinkers understand that and respect people that are liberal, moderate, and conservative based on it, to the degree that they support the virtues of those three and to the degree that they reject the vice of those three. But seeking, respecting what's true, not a label. Okay. Also, third, free-thinking people have the greatest respect for others who are free to think for themselves, question everything they are told, learn at the deepest level to understand the reasons something is true or false, be able to merge the truths of opposing ideas to learn a third choice, greater, merge truth, have a scientist's passion for learning knowledge and truth, and use rational thinking to discover the greater truth. Fourth, the truth is that one should not side with liberal, moderate, or conservative, but rather see the virtues and vices in all three, and side rather with all virtues. Seek to merge the deeper truths of all to find the greater truth. Okay, yeah, one of the first books that I wrote was called Jesus Christ World Utopia, which was a book about, if we're going to have a utopia and a perfect society, when Jesus rules Earth for 1,000 years, my idea is, okay, when Jesus rules for Earth for 1,000 years, we're going to have a utopian society, and the utopian society will have a utopian or a perfect political economic ideology, and that's one of the ways that human suffering will end when Jesus rules for 1,000 years. So that was part of the thesis of my book. So in my book, Jesus Christ World Utopia, I explain that liberals have the virtue of compassion for individuals. Conservatives have the virtue of compassion for society and the species as a whole. And moderates have the virtue of seeing common ground and points of compromise. Okay. I further explain that just as we can combine the colors of red, green, and blue, so you look at, liberal, moderate, conservative as similar, like the three color schemes, red, green, and blue. So, the political spectrum, the political spectrum of liberal, moderate, conservative is like the color spectrum of red, green, and blue. So, and just as you combine those three colors to obtain white light, we can combine the virtues of liberal, moderate, and conservative to rise above the political spectrum to a utopian perfect ideology that combines the virtues of all three. However, just as absence of the three colors means darkness, rejecting the virtues of all three leads to a doom ideology and the doom ideology is the economic dictatorship of radical billionaires. Basically, a little further explanation. Liberals support socialist economic system. Conservatives support a capitalist economic system. Moderates support a mixture of the two. Basically, we have a mixture of the two. The utopians support an ideology which has the virtues of both capitalism and socialism, but is superior, and I call that an economic democracy. The perfect system, economic democracy, is far superior to socialism at providing for the needs of people, and is far superior to simple capitalism at promoting economic growth. And the opposite, the absence, is economic dictatorship. Below the spectrum is economic dictatorship. Above the spectrum is economic democracy. Below the spectrum is economic dictatorship, and that's like the economic dictatorship of the radical billionaires. Unfortunately, we're going toward the doomsday system of economic dictatorship in America. America is being destroyed by the radical billionaires who are creating economic dictatorship in America, which is the absolute worst economic system you could have. Okay, such a system opposes the well-being of both individuals and society at large. Economic dictatorship destroys free market capitalism. Many who call themselves conservatives are not conservatives at all, but are rather servants of a system of economic dictatorship that destroys free market capitalism, small business owners, and patriotic business owners who hire American workers. A utopian has the compassion. A utopian has the compassion for the people of a liberal, the drive for economic growth of a conservative, and the pursuit of common ground of a moderate. Raising taxes on the radical billionaire economic dictators of America to balance the budget and finance hundreds of billions of dollars in job-creating spending is both the liberal thing to do and the conservative thing to do. It creates jobs and ends the suffering of the American people, which is the dream of the liberal. Public purchase of billions of USA products and services also stimulates economic growth and prosperity for small businesses, which is the dream of conservatives. Only a utopian perfect system that combines the virtues of liberalism, conservatism, and moderatism both maximizes ending the suffering of individuals and maximizes the economic growth and long-term survival of humanity. Okay, fifth thing is to teach the voters, if you join the revolution against the radical billionaire economic dictatorship in America and become a champion of the American people, then you will be loved by the vast majority of the American people and you will have social belonging. Okay. There are many ways that the brainwashers make mind slaves of voters by using their core psychological needs of survival, morality, and belonging. If you can spot and understand the methods that they're using, then you can reverse that process to allow voters to be free to think for themselves and vote for their own survival, freedom, and economic well-being. By using voter psychology, economic education, morality education, and rational thinking education, we can recruit the masses to join the revolution and have landslide victories. Not just simple victories, but landslide victories. Public speeches, and here's one way we can do that. Public speeches and town hall meetings can help educate the masses to fully understand that voting progressive is the best way to help themselves in America. And at speeches and town hall meetings, you can help educate voters on, basic economic principles, basic moral principles, and basic rational thinking methods. So so the light bulb goes off in their head, and so they understand that progressive ideas is the way to help them. Okay. If we tell voters to kick every Republican out of Congress who voted for the Trump Republican tax bill that steals trillions from Americans and their children to give to the radical billionaire economic dictatorship, then we could have zero Republicans in Congress. My expert advice can give landslide victories for progressive candidates and zero Republicans in Congress. So, yeah, I'm not talking about just progressive victories and taking back Congress. I'm talking about landslide victories for progressives and having zero Republicans. Campaigning on the ideas of Bernie Sanders is already giving progressives victories. But what I'm saying is we can do better than that. By adding voter psychology, economic education, morality education, and rational thinking education, it would give progressives landslide victories and could actually give us zero Republicans in Congress. Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to help you.